I mean, we just all know at this point that my neighbors are incredibly loud, right? Also, yes, I am drinking iced coffee out of a straw, out of a dollar store wine glass. Seemed appropriate for the morning, but I do need to take my medicine. The chances that iced coffee is going to spill, very high. I also wanted to show you these sunglasses I got at Goodwill yesterday. Oh, they do appear very crooked. That is because my ears are crooked. But anyway, hi friends, welcome back to the Avocado Toast Budget. If you're new here, my name is Lexa, and today we are doing Watch Me Slowly Descend into Madness, aka 7 personal finance books in 7 days. Did I pick what could be described as the worst possible time to do this? Yes. Will you hear children running and screaming and dogs barking and balls bouncing throughout this entire video? Yes, but we did it. There were some serious surprises, some things I did not see coming. I had a ton of personal finance books that I wanted to rate and review and read, and I kind of just finally decided the only way I was going to do it was to make a challenge for myself and do it in a very short amount of time to help with my ADHD. So we did it. I have a lot of thoughts. I think we discovered some winners and some not so winners. I have been packing and moving while filming this vlog. I definitely found some new personal favorites, books I will be rereading myself and buying for other people that I absolutely loved, and I read some books that I will be happy to probably never read again. All of the books I talk about will be linked down below so you can buy them on Amazon, although I really recommend that you either buy them like used or support your local library, support your local bookstore if possible. But I also know that oftentimes, like if you want to own the book, Amazon is the cheapest and most accessible for most people, so I do have that linked below. Otherwise, this video is already a million years long, so get yourself a drink or a snack. There will be timestamps down below, and let's go ahead and get into it. So in true ADHD fashion, I woke up this morning and thought, what if I read like 7 personal finance books in 7 days? Am I in the middle of moving? Yes. Is my apartment a chaotic mess and definitely not conducive to vlogging? Also yes. But you know what? I have a ton of books that people have sent me or that I've just picked up on my own that I've been wanting to read. However, I'm actually having a hard time choosing between the books that I have. So I might also make this even harder and go take a trip to Barnes & Noble and see what they have, because there's a few that I don't own that I think I might want to read. I'm excited about this, so let's go ahead and get into it. So currently, these are the personal finance books that I have on hand. This is pre-trip to Barnes & Noble to see if there's anything else I want to add to this list to just make it harder to choose from. Okay, makeup is on. My camera battery is charging because I didn't plan this at all. So I'm on my phone, so the quality might be a little bit different, but that's okay because I'm not about to be taking my huge ass filming camera into Barnes & Noble anyway. But let's go ahead. We're gonna get some coffee, obviously, and then go to Barnes & Noble and see what they have, and then decide on the final plan for this week's 7 books, 7 days, personal finance edition. Hi, I have a mobile order for Lexa. Okay, so change of plans. My partner wants to come with me to Barnes & Noble, so we're gonna go pick them up real fast. Okay, while we wait for my partner to come out. It's not peppermint, but I don't know what it is. Oh, alrighty.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago.
We're just gonna ignore everything going on back here. I was looking for, they didn't have a few books that I wanted either for this vlog or if I do this again, if you guys like it, or just to have and to read. So I went on Amazon to check, and then I realized that I have an Amazon gift card and Amazon was doing like a sale on top of like the normally Amazon is cheaper anyway, but they were doing a sale on a lot of the books. We got like $5 off. So I ordered a lot of those on Amazon, and those will get here Friday. So as of this second, I don't know exactly what the plan is for this week and exactly what I'm going to read, but we can start off with what I think I'm going to read today. Okay, so I think the first book I'm going to start off with today is Financial First Aid. Alyssa kindly sent this to me, and I have been wanting to read it, so I'm really excited that I'm finally just going to sit down and do it. It looks really awesome. It has her own artwork. I believe this is her own artwork. It's like all over her Instagram as well that I love. So it's kind of like there's a lot of information, but there's also some things that'll keep me interested, which my ADHD brain is very excited about, and I figure that'll be a good way to kind of kick this off. So I am going to read some of this, make some lunch, and then I will update you here in a little bit. Good morning, friends. So I have officially read all of Financial First Aid. This was really good. It was not what I expected, and it should have been had I just like read the synopsis on the back, but I was just so excited that I like jumped in. I would say that this is like perfect for people who are just either really struggling with money, just experience like a job loss, or have a lot of medical bills, or found themselves in a lot of credit card debt, just some form of like something that feels like a financial emergency or a big financial change in your life. It is very empathetic, which I love. There is no shame, no guilt. Alyssa did such a good job at making just everything feel valid and everyone's struggles feeling important, and understanding that it's worth stressing about, but also giving you solid tips on how to work through it. So each chapter is kind of just like a different concept. I would say the first 2 to 3 chapters revolve around emergency funds, building your emergency fund, how to navigate like why they're important. She advocates for 3 different types of emergency funds, and I really liked the way she explained why. Each chapter is like very short, which I like. A lot of them have some sort of graphic on them. Here you can kind of see they're like bullet points or like little paragraphs. There is also an audiobook for this as well. I couldn't find it on Scribd, but it is available on Audible if you prefer to listen or you want to have an audiobook as you read. I always find that really helpful. The other chapters kind of touch on different types of financial emergencies, whether that is a bankruptcy, or if you go through a natural disaster, or even something that's like might not be a life emergency, like if you get pregnant and you want to be pregnant and you're excited about it, but you're like, oh my god, I don't know how I'm gonna handle this financially, I wasn't prepared for this, losing a job, all of these different things. And I love that because I feel like there's a lot of different financial stress related life events that people can relate to, and that you can come back to specific chapters if something like that happens to you. And I think that this is definitely more of like an overview of concepts and things that are available to you, resources, tools, steps that you can take. Nothing goes too in-depth. I would say the most in-depth that she goes is around like emergency funds and saving, but I kind of like that because I feel like this is made for people who are in a financial crisis, and if you're in a financial crisis, sometimes you just need a place to start. Oh my gosh, and I can't believe I almost forgot to mention literally my favorite chapter in this book, and that is chapter 9, which covers financial abuse and putting yourself first and how to kind of navigate that. This, I think, is such an important chapter. I think it should be included in every book around personal finance, but I think Alyssa did an amazing job at showing the signs of financial abuse, showing how it shows up differently in different situations, validating people's experiences, giving resources and tools that you can use to get help whenever you need it, and also educating people on how they can support themselves and hopefully give themselves some independence, so if they do find themselves in that situation, they are able to financially leave and protect themselves as much as possible. Absolutely love that chapter. Okay, so each book I want to rate on like a 5-star rating scale, but for different kind of concepts. So I have beginner friendly, entertainment value, inclusivity, and just the amount of information and helpful information that's included for the intended audience. So I would say for like beginner friendly, I would give this like 4 out of 5. We'll use either my little avocado money logo or like the money bag emoji. I would give this like 4 out of 5. I think it did an amazing job, and it's perfect for people who are really lost and overwhelmed with money because it kind of covers a bunch of different concepts in a way that's kind of digestible and it doesn't feel like too much. However, I do feel like at some points there was some really important information that didn't get enough entertainment value. I loved a lot of the stories. You could definitely hear her voice in it, like could hear Alyssa and the way that she talks and the way that she thinks, and it felt like a real person that like you could relate to was writing this book. So again, I would give that like 4.5 out of 5. I do think that there were some points that it was a lot of information, and I wish that there was another story or a quote, because I love her personal stories or stories of other people that she included. Inclusivity. So I like that at the beginning she starts off by acknowledging the privilege that she had, and that until you're in it, you never really understand, and you can inform yourself, but you can't fully understand what people are going through until you've been through those things. There was a section kind of talking about preparing for, if you need to prepare for your parents' retirement or taking care of your family, and I love that she included acknowledging that different people from different cultures have different views on what it means to take care of your parents, your responsibility in the family, and validating those different beliefs. I thought that that was awesome. So I would say like 3 out of 5. Like overall, it was good. I love that she talked about coming from a place of privilege and acknowledging that. So just a few things that I think could improve, but overall, still really good. And finally, informative, the amount of information. I think for the intended audience, again, I kind of already touched on this. I think that there were a few like foundational concepts that I wish she would have just went into a little bit more. Specifically, like she talks about the debt avalanche versus the debt snowball, but sometimes that's like one sentence or it's a paragraph and then she's moving on to something else, which I totally understand because there is so much information packed in here. But I think it's a lot of just letting you know what's out there, kind of surface level information, so that you can then go on and find other resources that are going to help you learn more about those things that you need. So in the sense of relating to a wide range of people and providing a lot of surface level information, I would say like 5 out of 5. I would say the depth of that information would be like 2.5, 3, depending. Some things she was able to go more in depth on, some things not so much. But I think that for the intended audience of someone in a financial crisis, that's almost better. Another like side thing, all of the chapters are like color coded, and I'm here for it. I love that like the pages of each chapter is like different. It's just, it's very nice for my ADHD brain, and I love that. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because it's like really bright in here, but I love that like you can look on the side and see how long each chapter is. I very much enjoyed that. The next book that I think I'm going to read is Get Good with Money. I've actually started this before I was going to do individual book reviews, and I can still do that, like if people want more in-depth. The format wasn't working out as well for me as I thought it would. So I'm going to go back through, and even though I've read this, part of this before, I'm gonna go back through and start from the beginning because it's been a few months and I wanna make sure that like I really remember everything. But I remember loving this, absolutely loving this. I am so excited for this. This is more of like a traditional book, whereas Financial First Aid and The Financial Diet has, oh no, the children are awake. It has graphics. This is traditionally published book, so I'm excited. Okay, I'm back. I just realized that I didn't tell you what this book was about at all. So from what I remember, this is more of like a step-by-step program. Some personal finance books I've noticed, it's either kind of like a step-by-step system or it's overview of concepts, and you can kind of jump around. You don't necessarily need to go in order. You're just learning foundational concepts. This is more of like a step-by-step guide, and it is revolved around this idea of financial wholeness that she talks about, and I love it. How many, let me try to remember. I think it's 8. Is it 8 steps? Okay, no, it's 10 because it's like percent. It's hard to do that. I know this from making a course, that it's hard to like figure out because there's so much information that people need to know, and it's all kind of important for each other. But I love when people are able to put things into steps, and from what I was reading, I loved it. So it's kind of like a step toward financial wholeness, toward really understanding and feeling confident with money, getting all of your finances in order. And Tiffany does an amazing job at relating to people, sharing her stories, bringing in a lot of different perspectives, even just from the first, I don't know how far I got, let's see, like 100 pages, I think is about how far I got. I was loving it. So that is kind of what this one is about. Now I'm going to go read this, and I will check back in here in a little bit. Serious 6-year-old stuff. Okay, so I told myself that the next time I sat down in front of you all, I would have washed my hair, and I did, so I feel like we're off to a good start. Today has been a little bit chaotic. However, I signed my lease for the first ever house I will be renting. And despite the fact that today has been chaotic, I have read a little less than half, and I am obsessed. Obsessed. Absolutely love it. I love the layout. Like I said, it's kind of like broken down into percents of getting like whole, financially whole with your money. It's basically just like big to-do steps. And then in each chapter, it's broken down by, I think it's the plan. I just had it where she talks about it, but I think it's the plan, the do, and the review. And basically it's just summarizing what the chapter is about, giving you concrete actionable steps of what you need to do, and it's very specific and very detail oriented, and then reviewing everything that you just went over and celebrating the step that you took. Like, I truly believe that this is a book that you wouldn't want to sit down like I'm doing and like read it all in one day. Like, I really believe that it's something you'd want to like sit down and follow chapter 1, do everything that she's talking about in that chapter, and then review that, and then move on to chapter 2 over the course of however long that ends up taking you. We've gone over saving, debt, and budgeting. She did an amazing job at packing so much information into a book, but not having it feel overwhelming and not having it feel like you're just getting info dumped on, because I feel like that can happen a lot, even for just what I've read. 12 out of 10. I love that she's very relatable in the sense that even if you have low income or high expenses and you know that there's just not a lot of wiggle room in your budget, it's very hard for me to recommend personal finance resources that I feel like get it, they've been there, they get it, and they still provide actionable steps that people can take in that situation. But I would feel confident recommending this. Just know, so far, I'm absolutely loving it, and I think it's the perfect step-by-step guide for beginners. Oliver has, like, torn chunks out of this at this point. I'll show you guys.
He doesn't look like he can fit on it, though.
He doesn't! I'll show you, okay? His back legs do not fit. He does not fit. Oliver! He does not fit. Like, at all. I officially finished Get Good with Money. Absolutely amazing. I already said this in my first update. I figured that my opinions weren't going to change. They didn't. So 10 out of 10 would recommend. What are the ways that I'm rating books? Okay, beginner friendly, 5 out of 5. Like, this is perfect for beginners. Whether you just don't know how to budget the money you have, or you truly don't have enough money that you feel like budgeting isn't even worth it to you, she covers everything because she's been there, and in a way that is relatable, and in a way that even beginners and people who know nothing about personal finance can digest. This is what I wish I like would have taken a class on in high school rather than just watching a bunch of Dave Ramsey videos. Entertainment. I would say like solid 4 out of 5. I think the audiobook, 5 out of 5. The way that she talks is so engaging. You can hear her voice and her personality. The book, if you were just reading it, she finds ways for you to relate. She tells her stories and other people's stories, and I feel like in a book like this that has so much information, that's really important to keep you going. Oliver! That is the tag. That's the tag. Inclusivity, I would also say like 5 out of 5, maybe like 4.5 out of 5. She does an amazing job from the beginning, including everyone, no matter what your income is. She talks about short-term and long-term disability, how to take advantage of community resources if you're on disability or if you don't have a job, anything like that. I think that there was nothing that like stood out to me as not including a bunch of different voices. The story she had was from a bunch of different people, different perspectives. I think it did a great job with that. And informative, you probably already know, 5 out of 5. This is like so much information packed into one book, but it's also not too much information that you get overwhelmed. Shifting gears a little bit from so far like one of my favorite books to a little bit of like a backstory on why I'm not reading this book in this vlog, but I am reading this book in this vlog, which is the sequel or the next book that Erin wrote. So there's Broke Millennial, the same idea of Get Good with Money, that it's like an all-over beginner covering a bunch of foundational knowledge, and then this is specific to investing. I read this originally when I bought all of these personal finance books, especially ones that I hadn't read yet. My plan was to do individual reviews, and I think maybe now I could do that. But when I first started, this was the first book that I like read/reread. I went into it because I thought that I was gonna like absolutely have nothing but rave reviews to say, and this could kind of be the book that I recommended and compared to other books. And it didn't quite go that way, because I know for me as a beginner, I would feel like shit reading some of these benchmarks. Did I enjoy this as much as I was expecting? No. I wouldn't want to dissuade anyone from reading it. However, I had a lot of problems with how the information was presented as well. It just felt a little bit outdated. It felt like it was pandering to a certain audience at some points. This was written probably in 2015, 2016, and I imagine if my thoughts from that time were written down, I would have changed and grown, and the world has changed and grown. I mean, this was pre-COVID, so a lot of stuff just, it's different now. The chapter I love the most was her chapter on investing. So the fact that she has a whole book on investing, I think the way that she explained it, broke down the concepts, it was so relatable and understandable and beginner friendly that I want to read this one and see how I feel about it, because this was written in 2019, so again, pre-2020, but she did such an incredible job explaining investing that I'm actually really excited to go into this and read more about it. So probably should say the name of it. This is Broke Millennial Takes on Investing. It's part of her money series. I think she also has one that's like talking about money. That one I'd be really interested in too, because that was another chapter in here that I really liked, was her chapter on having money conversations with friends and family and partners. She did an amazing job with that as well. So if I end up liking this, or if that's something that you guys want me to review, I'll do that, but I'm gonna do this one next. So this is a little bit different because I've already read one of her books, which is the first I can say for any of these other ones yet. And this is less of an overall beginner book and more of a beginner book on investing. I'll check back with you guys here in a little bit after I've read some of it. I feel like I need to be like, just so you know, this apartment is uninhabitable. And I had a bunch of college kids living above me before this with a dog. And like every once in a while I'd hear them, but it was not like this. It was not constant.
Hi, I have a mobile order for Lexa. Absolutely, go ahead, 4 for me.
Okay, thank you so much. I've gotten through the intro and the first couple of chapters, and I wanted to comment on, one, this is set up, I kind of like that it's set up similarly to how her first book, The Broke Millennial, is set up, in the sense that it starts off kind of telling you an overview, who this book is for, which, to clarify, and I kind of figured that this was the case, this seems like the target audience is like either newbie investors or people who want to know a little bit more about investing and building wealth and taking advantage of things past just like their 401k, or people who don't even understand what a 401k is, how it works. It's not like some crypto bro book. And then I love that chapter 2 is pretty much just a list of defining different kinds of investing concepts, because really the majority of investing is learning these definitions and understanding this whole new language kind of. I would say I definitely recommend, if you're someone who is new to investing and you're already feeling kind of overwhelmed with it, just start with trying to get familiar with the first chunk of ones that she talks about. So far I'm like very happy, because I feel like this is exactly what I was kind of hoping it would be. I feel like she really does an amazing job explaining investing in a relatable way to millennials, to her target audience, to people who just want to be able to use it enough to build wealth and hopefully retire someday, but don't need to be bogged down with a bunch of like complicated shit you don't need to know. But I will say, one of the things that confused me a little bit about The Broke Millennial is I wasn't sure it knew who its target audience was. I knew what it thought the target, like what its intended target audience was, but sometimes it kind of strayed away from that. I would say so far this is much clearer on who the target audience is, and making it very clear to you, like from the beginning, whether this is the book that you're looking for. And I kind of love that, because then you can decide if you fit into this and if this is where you're at and what you're looking for, and if not, there are other resources for you. But if so, hopefully it goes on to like really keep that target audience in mind, because I think that's really important, especially when we're talking about something like investing.
Any dabbling in the latest hot tip needs to be done with the speculative part of your portfolio that you can afford to lose.
I just read chapter 14, which is like one of the last chapters other than like conclusion chapters in this book, and I wish it had just stopped before chapter 14, because it just feels like the tone is very different. It has that same kind of unchecked privilege tone that I didn't like about some parts of Broke Millennial, but it's like come out of nowhere. And it's supposed to be a chapter that's like, I get the idea of it. It's giving you different perspectives from different people who have built wealth for themselves, who are either in the personal finance industry or for one reason or another, and asking them kind of like what they think wealthy people do differently so that you can get ideas from that. But the chapter starts off with like blatant privilege of her talking about like wanting to beat her dad, to being a millionaire. And I think it's important to recognize when you have privilege and to recognize the limits of that privilege. And I feel like that's something that the book in Financial First Aid, the first book I read, handled pretty well, because she recognized that like she can't relate to everyone and she has this privilege, but didn't try to like glaze over it, didn't try to pretend like, well, I have this privilege, but it doesn't actually matter. Like one guy throws in here, I don't know what question she asked these people. His first sentence is, that's me, I'm completely self-made. No, you're not. Like, I've already talked about this a lot, like self-made, that doesn't exist, it's not a thing. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense in this, like a beginner investing book. I don't know. I just wish that this didn't exist, because now I'm like struggling to even get through the rest of this book. I just want it to be done, because this just feels so tone deaf and just not to the tone of who she knows and says her audience is. It's just weird. So anyway, if you're gonna read this book, dude, I would honestly just skip chapter 14. Hey, future Lexa here. So I lost some of the footage from this. I lost like my last clip doing my review, but looking back on like the edited footage, I feel like I said a lot of what I wanted to say about Broke Millennial Takes on Investing. I definitely liked it a lot more than the first book. I think if you are looking for a really in-depth guide on the principles of investing, how to get started, all of the terminology, this is a really great guide. I would just skip that like 14th chapter, just pretend it ends on chapter 13. It was not my fave. There was definitely, I really like that she addressed that there were things she's already changed her mind on in Broke Millennial, because that was one of the things that I brought up, that it's hard with published books because I can't fault them for like not being editable blog posts, but also if you're going to spend your money on it. But I have to rate and review what is there that like you're paying money for, not what I assume to be the author's views or opinions now. But I really just wanted to pop back in so I can go ahead and give my ratings. So number 1, beginner friendly. I think for investing, this is a great beginner friendly resource. Like this is true investing 101. I love how she explained investing in the original Broke Millennial, and I love that we got an opportunity for her to really delve deep into what she knows. I feel like she makes investing seem so much more approachable. She does a great job breaking down what can be and can feel like really hard and complicated topics, and make them very accessible and help you to really understand like what they actually mean, know the terms that you need to know, and take away all of the rest that you don't. So all of that considered, like 4.5 out of 5 for beginner friendly. Really awesome resource if you're a newbie to investing. Inclusivity. When it comes to investing, I think she does a really good job at like being very clear on who the target audience is, other than that last chapter. But again, something that I have just noticed so far with Erin's books is that I definitely think that Alyssa and Tiffany with the Financial First Aid and then Get Good with Money did an incredible job tackling, balancing the privileges that you have with also explaining how those come into effect. I think with something as specific as a book on investing, like a single personal finance concept, it's hard to be inclusive to everyone. If your goal is to learn more about investing, chances are you have some sort of discretionary money, even if it's not a lot. Like you don't have to have a ton. Just if you're someone who is struggling to even make basic ends meet, usually investing is not like your first number 1 goal. But she talks about who the book is for and who it is not. Chapter 14 goes I think it's chapter 14 or is it chapter 9? It's been like a week. Goes a little bit off the rails like I talked about. So I would say overall, it did a pretty good job, like 3.5 out of 5. Honestly, it would be closer to 4 or 4.5 if it wasn't for that last chapter and a couple of other little things sprinkled in. What is next? Entertainment. Erin does a pretty good job at putting her voice into books and trying to make what can be very dull financial concepts entertaining. I think it was really good. I don't think it was amazing. I definitely think there are other books that I have talked about in this lineup that I preferred more on the entertainment value, but this is also the only one of its kind in this lineup because it is just about a specific financial concept. So I would say a 3 out of 5. Like it was good. It just wasn't anything mind-blowing in terms of entertainment, but I don't think that you think that's gonna be the case when it comes to a book on investing. But I don't think it's gonna bore you to death either. and informative. When it comes to the goal of this book, I think it accomplished it really well. It didn't overwhelm you with information, but it went more into depth into the important parts and the foundational knowledge. If you're a beginner, if you are the target audience of this book like we talked about, I think you're going to get a ton of information out of it. I think it's going to be well worth the money that you spend on it, although I also think that you could just pick this up from your library if you wanted to. So I would say like 5 out of 5. This was really great for a book on investing, being enough but not too much. I believe the book that I am picking up after this is The Psychology of Money, and we're just gonna kick right off into me starting talking about listening to The Psychology of Money. But I'm really excited about The Psychology of Money because it is a different book than all of these other ones. It's not necessarily a personal finance 101 book. It is not just about specific concepts. It looks more into, it is broken up into, each chapter is like a different story about money and how our beliefs and our behaviors affect our money, and I really like that. It is less about the numbers and more about recognizing that humans are behavioral and how our upbringing and how our society affects our views and then thus our behaviors around money. So let's jump into my thoughts on this one. I have a book club at 1, not related to personal finance books, and I have not started on The Psychology of Money. Well, I read the intro. My hope is that I can listen to The Psychology of Money on audiobook while I clean out my closet. The countdown is ticking for when I no longer live below these people. Remember when I said that I was going to listen to The Psychology of Money while cleaning out my closet? Of course you remember, because for you it was probably like literally 5 seconds ago. Yeah, it's been a few days. I completely forgot about 2 meetings and a therapy appointment that I had that day. So literally right after I shut off my camera, I had to like start, that's not yours. I had to start getting ready. So anyway, you don't care. My point being, wow, I was close. Can I there we go. My point being, it's been a few days. Then my cousin came into town. Then I had to get some things ready for my house. I don't remember if I told you guys, but I'm literally signing it. Today is Thursday, to clarify. I have not listened to a single personal finance book up until today. And I had to do a lot of stuff for the house that I'm getting ready to move into on Monday. I am so excited. You'll probably still see me here, I think, unless I just like really hunker down for a little bit as I like move stuff, because I technically have this apartment until October, so it's like 2 more months. Anyway, hopefully at the beginning of this video I didn't say 7 consecutive days. Right now I am reading and listening to The Psychology of Money, and I'm actually so excited about this one because it's completely different than any of the ones that we have talked about so far. And I figured this, it's not like a step-by-step guide, it's not a personal finance 101 thing, it's truly like the psychology and the sociology around money. How do we think about money? How does our upbringing and our life and when we were born, where we were born, what happened to us, how our family thought about money, how does all of this affect our relationship with money? And I'll end up, if I haven't already inserted the clip, I will insert the clip of me just reacting to like the first little bit of the first chapter. I'm already absolutely loving it. I was a little worried because if you've watched this video, I'll link it up here, that I reacted to a Dave Ramsey video. He was talking about how the same statistic of like usually people in lower income classes spend like $400 on lottery tickets. I think it's a year or something. And how those same people often don't have $400 in an emergency fund. And the conclusion that Dave Ramsey drew was that people who are in low income, poor people, just suck with money and blow it all on unnecessary shit like lottery tickets. And the point that this author is making is that we can sit here and judge people, but if we're not in that same situation, we can never know the motivation behind that. This idea of like, is it so unbelievable to think that people who struggle so much with money just want a chance to get out of their situation will go to extreme measures that we think is like blowing money, is a waste of money, to just try to do something since nothing else is working. And I just had to pause because I literally like was in a line like verbally being like, yes, this was exactly my point. Literally the exact same statistic that I was pissed at the conclusion that Dave Ramsey drew. Here is this guy who actually knows what he's talking about and has a degree in this and has background and understanding around how culture and your upbringing affects money. So anyway, I digress. I talk about this all the time. Like, yes, our relationship with money is behavioral. Yes, we can talk about like what mathematically makes sense, but in reality, a lot of our relationship with money is affected by our life, our values, what we learned as a kid, our culture, and this talks a lot about that, and it comes from such a place of empathy and knowledge, but breaking these concepts down into a way that makes sense and they're entertaining because there's like stories and people that you've heard of, like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, like they're all attached to these stories. I'm loving it so far. Right now I just started chapter 5, so I just finished chapter 4. I'm going to hopefully work on cleaning out my closet because, oh, no, I didn't touch my closet. Things have gotten worse. Hopefully I get around to that today, but to be perfectly honest with you, first I'm going to finish my puzzle. I'm going to also take my medicine because that's going to up the chance that I'm actually going to be productive today and not just do a bunch of things that I shouldn't be doing. I have my coffee and I'm ready to get this thing started. I'll keep you updated. Oh my God. The AC is on, but I'm dying. So hopefully it's just not too distracting. Did I tell you? I don't remember if I told you. I decided to just go to the laundromat. I took like all of the clothes other than what was hanging up out of my closet. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take it to the laundromat and do it all. And it was awesome. In a couple of hours, I got it all done, all cleaned. I don't hang up most of my clothes anyway. So I just like lightly folded them, put them in laundry baskets, and then they're just sitting in my car. And my plan is to just take them to my new house on Monday. The important part, I did finish The Psychology of Money. I don't have a lot to say on this other than just like read it. Like it's not a personal finance 101 book. I would say the first half of it is like stories and kind of like how I was explaining it before. Like different stories, different ways of us approaching money. And then the last half is still stories, still how our relationship in life and circumstances affect money, but more along the lines of like giving more concrete personal finance advice, but more in the realm of just like general saving, investing. It's just different. It's hard to explain other than just if you have any sort of trauma, which don't we all, around money, whether that is trauma around feeling like you just need to like save and you can't spend and you just need to like hoard every penny that you get, or the opposite of like trauma around money that you just find yourself like never being able to stick to a budget, always impulse spending, putting yourself in financially compromised situations, or anything in between or beyond that. This is a really awesome look at how we all think about money and how our parents thought about money affects how we think about money and so on. You can't directly compare this to like Broke Millennial or any of the other ones that I read so far because it's just different. It's not so much a how-to, it's a look into, well, the psychology of money. Okay, beginner friendly. That's a little bit tricky because I do think that this didn't go over like 101 kind of concepts, but I also don't think that you need like a large understanding of money. So I would say like 3 out of 5. I think that he did a great job at breaking down different concepts, and I don't think at any point in time it was like overwhelming or hard to understand. I just don't think it's not supposed to be like a beginner 101 kind of book. Ooh, entertainment. I would say like the first half of this, for it being a book and like traditional print kind of book. Oh, again, that's real bright. It did a really good job kind of like the narrative style, not feeling like you're just getting bombarded with information, but telling stories. So that I would say like 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5, depending on how you get your entertainment. First half, that. Second half went in a little bit more into like information, giving advice. I felt myself like checking out a little bit more often. Again, that's just because that's like not the kind of style of book that this is. So I would say entertainment value overall, again, probably like 3 out of 5 for the whole book. But I would say like the first half of that book where it's more storytelling, I really enjoyed. Inclusivity. This took a look at like a lot of different, like I was saying, I already gave you that example of like what I loved so much about this book compared to how Dave Ramsey looked at that same stat earlier. So 4 out of 5, there were a couple of things that I was like, and it's definitely not perfect on the inclusivity realm, but in trying to understand different cultures, why people think the way that they do, why what we think might be right for someone, we can never know what they're going through. Inclusivity in that way this book did an amazing job with. And then informative, 5 out of 5 for me. I felt like I learned a lot for what this book is. It is not, again, a personal finance 101 book. Again, my rating scales are a little bit harder to apply to this book because when I was making those kind of things, I was thinking about like traditional personal finance books, and I knew going on into this that this would be different, and I'm glad that it's different. I really liked it. Don't let my because I feel like this probably has a lower average rating than other ones, but don't let that dissuade you. I still would give this book probably like a 4 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5 in general. Really loved this. I think that a lot of people are going to get a lot of value out of this. So these are the books we've read so far, and I think next I really want to read Clever Girl Finance because they have like, this one is the main one, and then they have one on like side hustles and one on investing. Honestly, I'm probably just gonna like lay in bed all day and listen to the audiobook and read along to this. I am super excited about this one. This was like one of the ones that has been on the top of my list to read for a while, and I've heard really good things, and I think it's going to be awesome.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
It is just, from what I know so far, kind of like the setup of Broke Millennial or Get Good with Money, where it's like personal finance 101. I don't know if it's like a step-by-step guide or if it's more just like, here's what you need to know, here are like the chapters, depending on how you want to read it. Super excited, but this one seems like shorter. I'm excited.
Hi, my sweet girl. Hi. Wow. Such a good girl. Such a pretty girl. I love you. Yes, I do.
Okay, so I was getting vibes that like the financial advice portion of this was kind of rooted in that like Dave Ramsey baby step kind of thing, although I don't see the shame that Dave Ramsey has in this book, the just like strictly finance advice. I was seeing a lot of like calls to that, but I didn't want to make that comparison because I didn't want to compare, since we all know how I feel about Dave Ramsey. It's disgusting. And then he profits off of the shame. Ugh. But since the book quoted him, I'm gonna say it's okay to make that that comparison. So it is. It's very much baby step 1, emergency fund, all debt is bad except for your mortgage, including student loans, yet why are student loans any different than your mortgage? And she even has like a section like calling out if we think that student loans aren't like bad debt, but she calls a mortgage good debt, but it's like student loans can be the same interest rate if not lower than your mortgage, and they can contribute to you making a lot more over the course of your lifetime. So I just don't understand. I've never understood why people think a mortgage is good debt, but student loans are inherently bad if you're going the route of good debt versus bad debt. So I thought that this was kind of where this book was headed, but I didn't want to make that assumption and say something if it wasn't, but just know it kind of is. So if you're looking for like Dave Ramsey's personal finance advice without his like shame and talking down to, then this might be the book for you. So just know that, you know, going into it. So again, I will keep you updated, but I'm still just like in bed reading, chilling out. So that's it. Okay, before I forget what I want to say about this, some key takeaways. 1, if I was going to recommend this to anyone, it would be people who had disposable income, people who were either self-employed, kind of like that, into like that money mindset, getting good with money, trying to improve their relationship with money, not so much in a way that they don't have enough money, but that they don't know how to manage the money that they make. This is why I feel like you don't want to read the intro if you read this, is because she like goes on a whole tangent about how she spent a bunch of money on designer Chanel handbags and then how that was a bad financial decision, but she actually ended up selling those bags for more than they were worth, but that because she didn't invest in Amazon, and if she had invested in Amazon she would have made a lot of money, so therefore it was a bad financial decision. It was just so unrelatable. I kind of stand where I did the last time that I checked in. This has a lot of the same ideas as like the baby steps. I will say that her take on credit scores does differ. Like she talks about the importance of credit scores, how to maintain your credit score, how to check it, some myths about credit scores and your credit and all of that. And I really appreciated that. This was not at all what I was expecting this book to be. Not at all. I'm kind of really thrown off a little bit. This is kind of how I was feeling when I first read Broke Millennial. And it's the same feeling of like, I was so excited going into it and I just don't know. Like this is, out of all the books I've read so far, this would be one of the, I just don't know if I would recommend this. I would recommend Get Good with Money way before I recommended Clever Girl Finance, and I did not see that one coming. I want you to know I really went into this with like the best of expectations. So my ratings. Beginner friendly. This is like very, very basic concept, so I would say like 4 out of 5. The only thing I would say is that like that starting off with that introduction and kind of the unrelatableness and then the money manifestation, I feel like could lose some people before you get really into like the good stuff. And some of the way that the book was organized, I feel like could be a little bit confusing because it's not laid out in like that step-by-step, but otherwise a lot of really good foundational information. Entertainment. I don't feel, there were like some interviews, which was kind of cool to hear other people's perspectives, but they were literally just like Q&A. Like, here's the question, here's the person's answer. It felt like it was like probably like an email or a written out interview. So I would say like 2 out of 5. This is not a book you come to for the narrative, to learn more about the author, to learn more about people's experiences. It's just to get the information and to know what to do with it. Inclusivity. This is shocking to me. I love that it's written by a woman of color. I think we need, even though this says a lot of what Dave Ramsey says, I think we need women of color, disabled people, queer people. We need those people saying these things and making that content, and I don't want to skim over the importance of that. Otherwise, I feel like 3 out of 5 because it does not really talk about what to do if you can't make ends meet. There aren't really a lot of examples of people who aren't high income earners, and I think that that's okay if that's the target audience, but I don't know if that was the target audience, so just keep that in mind. How did you end up behind the couch scratching at it? No, where are you? Okay, and informative. I feel like I said this about another one, that there's a lot of information, but it doesn't go super in depth into any of that information. So I would say like 4 out of 5, because I do feel like the information was like, if nothing else, it was informative. Like, it gave you the facts and then moved on to the next thing, but nothing was explained super in depth. So maybe like 3.5 out of 5. Somewhere between 3 and 4. I haven't quite figured out what I want to read next. I think I want to, it's very late at night, I think I want to be able to sleep and then decide in the morning what I want to read. I have a few different options. I might even let you guys like pick on Instagram stories or something. But I will update you on that in the morning, depending on how I'm feeling. And I have to show you. This like must have been the color combo, because if these covers do not look exactly the same, the black writing on top with like the one word in green, the white book, the black thing, it literally is like, was it published by the same people? No. But even Clever Girl Finance looks, that's backward, very similar to all of these. That's funny. And I think a couple more of my personal finance books. I don't own any white books, really. A lot of my books are not white, and I own a lot of like regular books, except for my personal finance books. Good morning. We are going to Starbucks because I need some caffeine in my system. Yes, I am wearing the same shirt as yesterday. No, this is not the same day. We're moving on. So I still don't know what book I'm going to read. I'm leaning toward I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I've already read it, but I know it's just so good. And it's been a few years that it's something I want to talk about. It's something I want to reread anyway. So I think I'm going to read that either today or tomorrow, but it's kind of a longer one. And since I'm moving into my apartment tomorrow, or I'm at least getting the keys for it, probably today is the better option for that one. So I will keep you updated, but we're doing a quick caffeine run because I need something in my system. Okay, friends, I'm coming to you with clean and washed and cut hair. Not a single box to be packed. Can tell you that, but I have been doing everything else that I've been putting off so that I can put off packing. I did start re-listening to I Will Teach You to Be Rich. There are some things I definitely thought about, like there's definitely some of that same like comparison to dieting and losing weight that I don't like, but that's just so far in the intro, so you can always just skip that if you need to. And a couple of other things that like we just don't necessarily agree on, but I think it's a good example of like we don't have to agree on everything for me to still love Ramit's approach. He does such a great job with the audiobook. It sounds like a conversation, and so far I'm loving it. The setup of this is like, I believe like a 6-week program where you kind of follow all of the steps in this book to get all of your finances together. He's very much for like automating, not spending a ton of time on your finances once you get it all kind of like in check. And I feel like for a lot of us, that's really relatable and really like something that we can actually do is like take the time when we have the motivation. I talk about this all the time, especially for budgeting with ADHD, is to automate your finances so like you're set up for success in the future. And so far I really like it. We don't agree on everything, but that's okay. I will continue listening and I will keep you updated. I'm so excited about finally getting my hair chopped off. I've been going back and forth between continuing to grow it out and just chopping it off. It feels so much better now. What if we did like a half up, half down moment? Oh, what is that? This definitely looks cuter on camera than it does in person. Maybe it doesn't look cuter on camera. Big assumption, Lexa. I am hot and sweaty. I have, where am I at? And I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I just started chapter 7. I will say, this is a little bit more blunt at times than I remember it being when I first listened to it like a few years ago. And some of it is like this, I think this is the updated version, and I believe it was updated in 2019, but he talks about it being 2018, I'm guessing, when he like updated and recorded the audiobook. So there are some things that are just like a little bit out of date, like his take on robo-advisors. I saw this in Broke Millennial, and the Broke Millennial and takes on investing as well, because robo-advisors have come so far and their fees have really gone down. Some of that doesn't exactly apply the same way that it does in here. I really like the way that he has this set up. This is very conversational. It feels like, especially listening to the audiobook, I think the audiobook is fantastic. I will say he does talk about what to do and what doesn't apply if you just don't make enough money to get by. However, I would say that this book is definitely better, again, for people who have a little bit more discretional like income, or even like maybe you don't think that you do, because that does happen a lot of times. People don't think that they have enough money to get by, but when you kind of start putting your finances together, seeing where your money is going, you might be surprised. Those people and people who are like a little bit higher, either higher income or just like have more gap between their expenses, like base need expenses, and their income, this is gonna be awesome for. But I would say so far, the one that is best, I think, for low income or truly you just don't have enough money to get by, truly in the negative, even just with like base expenses, would be Get Good with Money. However, if you have any sort of discretionary income, you don't want to have to worry about your finances a lot, you want to be able to just like figure out a way to automate them and not have to worry about them consistently, this is a great system. I can't even hear myself think. I like that he talks about how in the first edition of this is the second edition, he didn't focus on the like emotions behind money, and now he sees how important that is. And he didn't talk about how important, like in realizing and talking about that everyone's gonna go about their financial journey differently. This is all focused around the idea of like living your rich life and how to get there and how to automate your finances, set up a budget, a no budget budget. He talks about YNAB. We know I love YNAB. Talks about credit cards. Right now he's like big into the investing portion, and I would say that is like a good chunk of this book. Like when I thought about this book, I mean, it does focus on like everything else, building an emergency fund, things like that, but this is majority wealth building and investing after the first like 4 chapters, but it doesn't feel like an investing book. So I feel like there's a good balance. I'm hoping I can finish this audiobook today, and I think I remember a lot about this, but again, there are, of course, like it's been a few years, but so far, really loving it. Some things that I didn't remember, I'm learning things. I feel like it's entertaining, and I don't even necessarily, like, he does have a lot of stories and like a lot of examples, but it's just the way it's written, like a conversation with a friend who knows a lot about money. I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Honestly, I don't think I have any more thoughts than what I already said. Yep, okay, so for my ratings, beginner friendly. Honestly, 4.5 out of 5. I feel like he did a really good job explaining all the concepts. The only beginner that I feel like this wouldn't be ideal for is beginner if you're like truly drowning, not making ends meet, kind of like what I already brought up. For everyone else, I feel like he does a really good job breaking down concepts without it feeling like it's being over explained to you or that he's like babying you through the process. It all sounds very conversational, exactly like I said. Entertainment. This could just be the audiobook, but I would give it like a solid 4 out of 5. honestly, for me, it was a 5 out of 5. I just am so entertained by Ramit. Like, I just love how he talks. But I don't know if that is just a me thing or if that's a universal thing. Well, I guess none of my ratings would be universal. They're all just me things in my interpretation. So that's literally what you're here for. So in my opinion, 5 out of 5. Although I have not read the hard copy, so I couldn't quite say on that one. Moving on. Inclusivity. There's nothing about it that's like, oh wow, you really went out of your way to be really inclusive. But there's nothing that was like, oh. So I would say like 3 out of 5. And informative. There's so much information packed into this book, but I kind of love that. And honestly, this seems to be, I went on Goodreads to like mark this as read, and this is the one with both the highest ratings but also the most ratings. A lot of people really love this book, so I would say I like feel very confident in recommending this. So far, Tiffany's book, Get Good with Money, and Ramit's book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. If you're wanting a comprehensive personal finance 101 book, this one leans more toward investing and wealth building. Get Good with Money leans more toward no matter your income, no matter your financial circumstances, here is all of the basic info you need, including investing and wealth building. But I would say this is more focused on that. Both audiobooks were great. Both of them were narrated by the authors Ramit and Tiffany, but those would be like my 2 go-to recommendations so far for like 101 books. But we have one more day. Have not decided what I'm going to read yet. Tomorrow is that day. I am also like getting the keys to my new house, not fully moving in because I haven't even looked about renting a U-Haul. I am packing, so that's something. I will update you guys tomorrow. Hello friends! I'm moving today. Well, I'm partially moving today. I've had some holdups on the packing thing. It's storming outside. So I've packed up like what I feel like I can for now, because the trick is that I don't have people to help me move big stuff until next week. And I'm trying to figure out when I want to move my cats over to the new house, but if I don't have a bed over there, Dory like panics in new places and I don't want to leave her alone overnight. Point being, I am moving today, but I also think I'm gonna go to the thrift store because I have my mom's car and I've already taken most of like the big totes and awkward shaped things that I can't fit in my smaller car over to the new house. However, I can't like, sorry, I haven't taken my medicine yet or had my coffee. What was I saying? Oh, anyway. I'm gonna go to the thrift store, see if I need like a dining room table. I know I need like more dressers. I want some lamps because, oh my god, lamps are expensive. And I'm just gonna see other things that they have because I'm going from a very small 1-bedroom apartment to a 3-bedroom house that has a lot more room. I don't feel like I need to fill it all up, but if I have my mom's car that can fit like bigger things like that, she has like a big SUV, I might as well take advantage of that while I can. And hopefully it's not gonna rain all over me. I'm like looking out my window right now. And started listening to Getting Good with Money. I have to admit, I was a little worried kind of going into this, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised. So far, I'm on like page 50. I would say this is definitely if you're either okay with references to religion, specifically Christianity, okay? Christianity, the Bible, God, or you are Christian. This so far is actually pretty good.
I don't know why I'm feeling this like deep, aching sense of dread.
I was a little nervous when she started bringing up God. I'm not religious, but I grew up in a very like religious family. Not so much my household, but my grandma. And I actually feel like so far, I'm only 50 pages in, this is like a much better recommendation for me to give to people who want someone who does incorporate Christian values and ideas, but in a way that doesn't shame you, and also doesn't shame you like if you necessarily don't share the same views as her. What I'm getting from this so far is that it is just like a quick and easy kind of beginner's guide to starting off budgeting, starting off saving, figuring out how to manage your money in a way that works for you. There aren't a lot of technical terms. It is very just kind of like real talk. If you were like talking to your friend who was good with money and they started telling you about how much they had struggled at first and how they ended up getting out of debt, what you should do, kind of things. Oliver! Hey, dude, no, you're not gonna dig your way out of here, sweetheart. So far, we've really just touched on how she got into like managing money, figuring out how what she was doing wasn't working. However, I feel like you are mostly going to relate to this if you have a family. I need to stop saying that. If you have children or you are planning to have children. And I also feel like this is a great recommendation if you are a stay-at-home parent or the partner of a stay-at-home parent, because she, from what I have gathered, started off her financial journey being a stay-at-home parent and wanting to stay that way. I don't think any of like the other books that I've read so far kind of like talked about that. So my plan is I'm going to listen to this. Oh, as a heads up, this is so chaotic because I haven't taken my medicine. Whew. Okay, lesson learned, Alexa, take your medicine before you sit down to film. Moving on. This is like a traditionally published book, and she actually does have an audiobook. I'm reading the audiobook on Scribd right now. I'm going to continue to listen to it while I go to a few thrift stores, see what I can find. I will keep you updated. So far, it's like pretty good. Not normally my thing, but a good one for me to recommend to specific people. Okay, I just ran to one thrift store. Oh my god, I found the cutest, like, emerald, the lighting sucks, but it's like an emerald green recliner. It's $65. It's like literally exactly what I'm looking for. I just can't take it out of the store myself. So I like put a big teddy bear over it, and I'm just like hoping no one notices until I can have someone come and help me load it, because I love it so much. And I have a velvet mustard couch that I film on, and it's so, I just think it's gonna be perfect. It's so comfy. Anyway, that's not what you're here for. This book has gotten a lot more gaudy, like God, focused on God and the Bible, and which normally would be like fine, because I can just recognize that this is like just not for me. I'm not the target audience. I have a big issue with the fact that she says that, and she like notes that it's like a controversial opinion, although I think that a lot of people agree with her and I don't, that all like couples should completely join their finances and see all of their money as their own. And I am just such a strong believer that you can join your finances but still have access to your own money, and that everyone deserves access to their own money to keep them safe and secure. As someone who left an abusive relationship last year, I cannot tell you how priceless having your own money is in any relationship, and I don't think that that says anything about your commitment. You can view the majority of your money as like your own, like both of yours, your own one thing if you want to. I just don't like this idea of like, if you're married, everything should be joint. You should view all of your money as like both of yours. And I think that saying that people should do that, like should do that, because that's what she says, I'm just not here for it. And it's so against like the rest of the tone of the book, which is like, so here's what I do, but if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. So that was just like one thing. It's hard for me to get past that because I just think it's so dangerous to say that. The book so far, it's definitely not for me. I'm not the target audience. It's very based around Christian values and talking about God and like typical family structures, very heteronormative family structures. So I'm kind of torn on that. It's hard for me to get over that, but I'm trying to listen to the rest of the book as unbiasedly as possible. Hopefully I can have some thoughts on whether I would recommend this book to the target audience. I'll let you know. Okay, I don't want to end on a bad note. I wish I would have read I Will Teach You to Be Rich as the last one, because this just isn't it for me. This is very, very heavy on the Bible, Christian values, that sort of thing. It was not at first, and then it just kept kind of getting deeper and deeper into that. Also, this is very basic personal finance information. It doesn't really even cover investing or wealth building all that much. It is mainly budgeting, saving, affording a house and children, and getting out of debt. We disagree on a lot, like personal finance wise, which again I said doesn't bother me unless I find the issues problematic. Like I mentioned with saying that everyone who's married should completely join your finances and see all of your money as one. I think it's important for people to have access to their own money. This in some ways differs from Dave Ramsey, like I kind of touched on, but in a lot of ways it's very similar. I don't know what else to really say about this because I don't want it to just sound like I'm shitting on it. Like I said, I appreciate the accessibility of not using a lot of complicated terms, and if she does use terms, she explains them pretty well. I appreciated at first when she was kind of like, here's how I view things, but ultimately personal finance is personal and you need to do what's up to you. I think she strayed from that as the book kind of went on, but I was appreciating that like at first. With that being said, beginner friendly. I would say like 3 out of 5 in the sense that it's not overly complicated, but I don't think it covers everything that you need to know to get good with money. Entertainment, for me, like a 1 out of 5. I do appreciate that like you can hear Jessie's voice and she talks about like stories with her life, especially like at first, but there aren't like a lot of outside perspectives or interviews, you know, like we've seen in other books that have either interviews or guests that kind of come in and talk about, or other stories from other people. So inclusivity, like 2 out of 5. She was pretty inclusive on different incomes. I like that at the beginning she did mention, like I said, even whether you're like single, plan on ever being in a relationship, or you're in a relationship, it's good to get a grasp on your finances. But I feel like that's kind of where it stopped on the inclusivity. Like I said, unless you want heavy Christian values around your personal finance concepts, this is not, I just don't think that this is the book for you. And I don't think that as a queer, non-religious person, I don't think this book was written for me, which is okay. I'm not the target audience, but I don't think the target audience was clear in the way that this book was sold. That's what I'll say. Informative, like a 3 out of 5. As far as like basic, very surface level beginner personal finance, just know that you're not going to get a lot of in-depth, you're not going to get a lot of step-by-steps, you're not going to get really much on investing or wealth building. It's mainly those very foundational knowledge of saving, paying off debt, and budgeting, but not a lot that went into giving you concrete actionable steps to lay out and start getting there. I hope that makes sense. I don't want this to sound like I'm attacking this. I hate that this is the last one because I don't want to end on this note. I just think after spending a week reading personal finance books, this would be the very last one that I would recommend overall to people, or just kind of like in general, even to the target audience. But then again, the target audience might not be my target audience and the same people that I'm keeping in mind whenever I am recommending books. So there's that. I will hop back on here once I have like collected my thoughts, put everything together, hopefully have a little bit more of a professional setup in the background, or at least a wall, and I will see you guys soon. So that is it for today's video. If you stayed until the end, you are the real MVP. And if you did, put down below in the comments like the book stack emoji or like the money sign emoji to let me know that you made it all the way through. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. I know it is much different than the normal like shorter form content that I make. So if you enjoyed this, if there are other personal finance books you want me to review or read for you guys, if you want me to do this again, if you want me to never do this again, either way, let me know down in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye. I'm going to scream along with that child.